You know what? We were a little bit late, guys. We're glad we're here. Glad we're here now. We had a little bit of little technical difficulties here, and we're here, right? So we're happy to be here, and I'm so happy I've got Teresa here with me, Miss Teresa Marzaro. She is a senior talent acquisition specialist at Suburban Hospital, located in the Washington D.C., Baltimore metro area. So I should say Washington D.C., not so much
I
Baltimore.
was going to say, what, Mister? I'm from Houston, Texas, Baltimore,
No, no, they're kind of far.
DC.
But those of you who are just signing in, let us know where you're signing in from, what city, what state, what country. And those of you may be making your way here because the original link that we supplied was not able to work because we had to vacate that particular event and restart, which means we lost the link. So unfortunately, we're not able to go live in the same exact spot where we thought we would.
What
So
he really means is there were gremlins afoot on a Friday
yeah,
afternoon.
exactly. So Joanne, she's working hard. She's going to make sure that everyone who show that they want to go to the first event that they're going to be able to have access to this one. And those of you who are live who just come on and you just happen to come on live because you saw us on live. Thank you for being here. We're talking all about how you can find that dream job faster, ways that you can be noticed by hiring managers, noticed by recruiters quicker and more often, and just a way you can kind of have those interactions that are going to be fruitful for not only you but also the organization you're talking to, because really you're both trying to see if this is going to be a great fit for each other. That's the whole process. And how do we get there, right? So how do we get there faster and more effectively? So very happy to have you on the show today, Teresa.
Happy to be here. Happy Friday to you.
Yes, yes. Happy Friday and happy to be alive. We're able to be on this live here, even though we got a little bit late. We're here, so
That's
we're
right.
glad. Yeah. So
That
again,
is right.
those who are just signing in, let us know where you're signing in from, what city, what state, what country, and we will definitely be reading all of your comments. If you're watching the replay, we also want to see your comments as well. Okay, so definitely participate. Don't just be quiet. Say something. Say something while you're here. Give us your top tip right now, Teresa. What's your top tip of what you're seeing right now to help those who are looking for their next opportunity, whether it's their first opportunity or their next opportunity? What are some things you'd like to share with our audience to let them know what's going to help them, first of all, to be noticed?
Sure. So it's funny. I actually just did a poll on my profile talking about cover letters, resumes. Is it that you know somebody? Is it my education? So all of those things are great. I would say that, if somebody has physically applied for a position, then obviously the first thing we're going to look for as a recruiter, or even if we're talking with our hiring manager about this candidate, is we're going to probably look at your resume, right? Although I would say in the world of healthcare, I think a cover letter is important. And I tell all of my new grad nurses that. And I'm always more impressed actually when I see experienced nurses that have been working for a while that, step out on that ragged edge and actually put together a resume, because sometimes you've been in a job for 5 or 10 years. You don't even know where to start. Like, you don't even know how to quantify everything you've done on your resume or a cover letter. But a cover letter to me in healthcare, and I will specify in healthcare, it's not probably the best thing for all, different lines of service, but in the nursing world that I'm entrenched in, I think a cover letter can speak volumes for you or against you.
Okay.
New grads, one of the things that my new grads always sometimes make a bad habit of doing is they'll write out so many cover letters that they're getting lost in the cover letter. And I'll read in the first line, I really want to work at Suburban Hospital. And then 3 lines later, it's talking about the hospital down the street because
Mm,
they forgot to do the classic edit,
yeah.
feature, find and replace. But if you can, in short, concise, almost like if you're in an interview or on an elevator, I call it your elevator speech. If you could tell me in a cover letter or even an objective statement on top of your resume, like why my hospital and why that department. If you're an experienced nurse and you're looking to make a change, or if you're an experienced nurse and you want to just make a change of hospitals or venues, you already know why, right? Intrinsically, you know why you love emergency department nursing, or working in a nursery, or working life flight, or working on a medical oncology floor, or a medical telemetry unit, or a surgical floor. Those are very different kinds of nurses. And my nurses out there who may be watching or will watch later, you're shaking your head saying, yeah, different kinds of nurses, right? My new grads kind of crack me up. They're like, I either want to work in, and they'll start off like ICU, the ED, oncology, or the OR, or maybe I want to do labor and delivery. And it's like, whoa,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
let's ask some more questions and find out what you love and how you like to interact with people, because there's nothing worse than investing 9 months in an OR nurse training, because it takes a long time. And then they're like, oh, I missed the people contact.
Yeah.
When you're interacting with people, but just not all the time. So it's like you need the right person. It's kind of like to get it. So if you can give us that elevator speech, that's my tip. Like, give us your elevator speech, but in words, either in an objective statement or in your cover letter.
Okay, so let's talk. I want to dive into this cover letter for a little bit here. So, with the cover letter, what are some things you want to see first in a cover letter as a recruiter, and probably you're probably speaking for hiring managers too? What's one of the first things you want to see in that cover letter?
Sure. I want to see you've done your homework. I want to see that you've researched the organization that you're applying to. Not have the right name of the organization.
Yes,
Take
first.
a look at what our values are, our mission statement. How does that resonate with you? How can you articulate how that resonates with you? Tell us why, if you're new to nursing, well, why did you decide to become a nurse? And I don't need the long story. I certainly don't want to see, I'll tell you what I don't want. I don't want to see quotes from Florence Nightingale. And I know we're celebrating her birthday this week, but I don't need to see quotes and filler of somebody else's thoughts. I want your
Ah,
thoughts. I want
yes.
your thoughts, your reasons. When you tell me that as a child you were in an accident, and because you were in that accident, you went to the hospital, and you had this amazing orthopedic team take care of you. So then you decided to be an orthopedic nurse. That's brilliant. That's fantastic.
Yes. Water break. Water break. Okay.
Water break. I know. Sorry, been chit chatting for a while, all day
But
today.
yes,
I know, right? And I think that you can tell those stories in short, quick, concise sentences, but tie it to back to the organization you're applying to. My hospital, I want to know why suburban hospital. I want to know what is it about us. Like, if you start talking about, and we're part of the Johns Hopkins medicine system, right? So we've got several hospitals in Maryland. We've got one in Washington, D.C., my sister hospital, Sibley Hospital, go Sibley. And then we've got a children's hospital down in St. Petersburg. Now, if you start talking to me about Johns Hopkins Hospital and how amazing and prestigious it is, I'm like, well, that's great. Then you could go to work there. But we're a suburban hospital. We're part of the system, but we are unique and we are different. And we want to see how special we are. And
right.
my managers read cover letters. Like, they literally were like, oh my gosh, did you see this person who wants to work in the emergency department? And this is why? Oh, what a great story. Or they'll be like, huh, everything on their resume is all about mother baby, and yet they're applying to my ICU job. Like, what is that about?
Ah,
Because
yes.
if you
Yes.
can't connect the dots between your experiences, your passion, your love, and what you're saying in the cover letter or even the objective statement, then there's a disconnect, and we're
Okay.
going to lose you.
All right. So let me. I have a question for you then.
Sure.
This is a would you rather question, but it's related to what you just said. So, would you rather this candidate, when it comes in, would you rather they have just the resume with no cover letter, or they have a cover letter but it has those kind of mistakes you talked about in it? Which
Well,
one?
skip the cover letter then. Because, okay, true confessions of a nurse recruiter.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. It's Friday afternoon confession time. So when I first started in nurse recruitment, which was 2005, I stepped away from the bedside and had done some kind of interesting, cool, like education and consulting stuff. And then I became a nurse recruiter. And if new grads did that, like if they wrote in their cover letter, I really want to work at the other hospital down the street,
Hmm.
I would call them up and I would say, oh, I know the recruiter at fill in the blank hospital. Would you like me to connect you? And they're like, Miss Mazzaro, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, well, it doesn't sound like you want to work for me, because in your cover letter, you wrote this hospital.
Right, right, right.
And then like they're mortified,
You
right?
should call them though. At least you call
I did call because I was a little snarky sometimes.
them.
But when I teach classes now to the different colleges in our local area, I teach a resume writing, interviewing for new grads class. And by the way, we should do that on LinkedIn.
Yes.
We should do a LinkedIn
That's gonna
live
be
on
the
that.
show. That's gonna
That
be
would
a
be a
show
great
right there.
topic.
Yes.
But
Yes.
when I teach these classes now, I tell them, I'm like, sometimes your resume is going to get thrown away because of your cover letter. It'll
Mm.
get thrown away if it's messed up like that. And I do occasionally I'll call, especially if they were in one of the schools where I taught the class. Then I'll send it to their instructor and I'll say, I guess they weren't really paying attention. And and then we have to
Oh,
have fun with
goodness.
this, right? We have
Yes.
to smile because these students, I'm not going to say kids, they're not kids, not all are kids. Sometimes it's their second career or
Yeah.
third career to become a nurse.
Yeah.
These
Absolutely.
students are stressed out. They just want to get through and they want to get that job. And then they're applying to 20 places. I mean, why not, right? Why put all your eggs in the one basket, that saying?
Right. Right. Of course.
So it's just my job to guide them to make sure that at least it sounds authentic, like you really want to work for
Yeah.
me. So I feel good about it.
Well, but that's the thing though. I would say most recruiters, and I don't think I don't have the authority to speak for most recruiters, but I'm gonna guess just in my interactions with them, they don't have enough time to follow up on the candidates sometimes that they really want to follow up on. So I don't imagine any of them picking up the phone and doing what you're doing, which is amazing that you actually gave them that feedback. Because what if they did that over and over again and they didn't realize it? So
True,
you saved them
true.
from.
And I can't
Yeah.
speak for anybody but myself. So I am all about my candidates' experience. And even if I don't hire them, I consider them a member of the community and they deserve that respect because they're trying.
Yeah, and I appreciate that about you. That's awesome that you do that.
Yeah.
In fact, let me check in. I want to see what the audience is saying about it. Well, they seem to like the idea as well. So I'm glad that you do it. It's a good thing. Keep doing that. All right.
I'll keep hearing
I want to ask you this. So we talked about the cover letter. You talked about how you want to see that they did their research
that. Yep.
on your facility first. That's one of the first things they need to cover, and then also what they're passionate about. Maybe in that second paragraph is what I'm getting from that. What they're passionate about, and make sure it's aligned with what you're applying for.
Yep.
So let's say if they are applying for, let's just say 10 jobs, and 3 of those jobs are in their passion, they probably need to have a passion related type cover letter, and then have a different one for the other 7.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. And and I get it. I mean, I've actually had nurses that are like, I really don't know what I want to do. And I'm like, and that's okay. But and if you don't really do a cover letter that is specific to the job you're applying for, and you say, I really want to work at your hospital. I
Okay.
haven't found my path yet as a nurse. That's a good snippet, right? I haven't
Okay.
found my path yet as a nurse, but I know that I want to start my career at your hospital, and here is why.
Yes, I like that. Okay, so all right, so let's say they want to work at the hospital. They're
Yeah.
not sure what path they want to go. Is it better to write a cover letter or not in that situation?
I think that's the cover letter.
Okay. All right. All right.
And we, the recruiters behind the scenes, see everything that they're applying for, but the managers typically don't.
Okay.
So
Got it.
they're safe with us.
That leads into my next question. I've seen this happen a lot. Let's say there's 15 jobs that are open at your facility that they think they could work for. Maybe there's 1 or 2 they really want, but the other 13 are just kind of like, in the back pocket. They want to make sure they work for the hospital. Does it look better or not so good if they apply for all 15, or is it better for them just to apply for the ones they really want? Give me some advice, because I know this is probably some of the things that's crossing the minds of the folks who are watching this.
Sure.
Should they make those 15 applications at that same hospital, or should
Apply
they
for the
yeah.
jobs that you're qualified for.
Okay.
Number 1. So, we're on a new grad theme, but it doesn't matter really. New grad or experienced nurse. If you're not qualified for the position, please don't apply for it. And I would say if there is a nurse recruiter or any recruiter for that matter, listening to this or is going to tune in later, that's our pet peeve.
Yeah.
Like and I tell people, if it says new grad nurse residency, apply. But if it says this is like an experienced nurse role and you need to have 2 years, if you're answering a question that says, I have 2+ years of experience, and you have to answer no, well, then you shouldn't be applying to that role. And so you need to read the job description, have some attention to detail, and not job description, I apologize, job posting, which is different,
Right.
hopefully, than a job
Hopefully.
description.
Yes. Hopefully.
That's a whole nother topic. But only apply for what you're qualified for and see if there's training opportunities. I think I have seen some people that have applied for jobs that they're not quite qualified for, but then they literally, I saw somebody write in their cover letter, they were like, if you invested the time to train me into this role, I will be so grateful and I will be forever dedicated to this team or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
pretty
what's your
cool.
so you like that?
I like that. Yeah. I mean, and then for me, like, I'll give you an example. So our ICU is a cardiovascular, cardiothoracic trauma ICU, right? We see other patients, but like you really got to have some good cardiac skills.
Right.
And I had a nurse who literally did not have any cardiac skills. They were solid in the medical, the neuro, even had some trauma, but that heavy cardio they just did not have. But they were like, if you just gave me a chance, like this is what I want to keep learning. And boy, my director for critical care, when she hears that, when that's like her music to her ears, right? I want to keep learning.
Love it.
And I want to, be that person that keeps growing in my nursing career. And I'm curious and I just want to keep learning and doing more. That is a beautiful thing.
Love that. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. And so Joanne, after you make that link and you let everybody know about the new link, we can probably just delete that one so that we don't confuse anybody because we want to make sure that they're able to see this one. So I just want to make sure I said that to Joanne. Okay, so you've given some good advice about not applying for the 15 jobs especially if they're not qualified. Well, let me ask you this. I'm going to follow up to that. What if they are technically qualified for all 15 jobs? They really only want to do 2 or 3, but they want to make sure that they get in at the hospital. What would you suggest?
I would suggest that I'd suggest it's okay to apply to all of them.
Okay. All right. So you heard it here.
Again, it's the recruiter. We're the ones seeing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're the ones seeing it. I actually, you have the ability within our applicant tracking system to send the application and a resume. And what you're doing is you're snapshotting like this application
Mm-hmm.
and never do that. And I had a manager just the other day come up and said, well, one of my recruiters was like, one of your recruiters always sends me the application. And I was like, fair enough. I said, let me ask you a question. And I showed him what his application would have looked like. So he worked at one of our Hopkins hospitals, applied for a position with us. But as he was getting his education and furthering his experience, he must have applied to like 90 jobs within Hopkins. I said, what do you think the hiring manager would have thought if I'd sent that application and they saw all the jobs over here in the corner that you'd applied to? And he was like, oh, I guess I don't need to see that. I was like, yes, you're right. So we recruiters have to protect the candidate too. I think it's our responsibility. We might, have a heavy sigh and say, oh gosh, they've applied to 100 positions. But this gentleman who I'm talking about is not a nurse. It's just because I recruit for manager level positions throughout the hospital. But if I had just ignored him because he had applied to so many other roles, we wouldn't have the most amazing manager in this department now.
Ah, that's a good story.
So I feel like there's just such a good fit for people.
Yeah.
We just have to find it, right? And that's our job. We're the connectors, right? We're the mavens. We connect people. If anybody's a Malcolm Gladwell fan, we're the mavens. Yep. We connect people. It's what we do. So
I like that. Well, you know what? I think that deserves this right here.
You're making my Friday.
That was good. I mean, you basically helped this person be able to join the team that might not have been able to join the team because they would have that automatic, like negative trigger that, oh wow, they apply for all these positions, they don't know what they want to do, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's good. Okay, so and Joanne's welcoming folks in. We have Alexander Harnako who's joining us. Thank you, and we have Priyanki. Yes, Priyanki. Very good, excellent. Thank you for being here. Oh, and also Trevor. Thank you for appreciate it. Well, listen, I wanted to kind of move on. We talked about the cover letter, which is important. That's one of the first things that you like to see is a cover letter. Okay, now are you taking into consideration is this a name I've seen before? Is there familiarity? Are you taking consideration the resume and the experience? Are you taking consideration the education? What's the second thing that's important to you?
The oh, I work for Johns Hopkins Healthcare. I guess I'm supposed to say the education, but that's not important to me. Oh, you heard it here. um, we are a magnet hospital, right? So when it comes to nursing, we are looking for bachelor's, right? BSN nurses.
Mm-hmm.
However, there is an associate degree nursing program that's local that we love, and typically it's two or three different types of people, right? Like they can't afford the 4 years of school. They've already got a bachelor's or sometimes a master's or sometimes a PhD in another track of their life, right? Another career field, and they're trying to become a nurse as quickly as they can.
Right.
And no, they'll go back and get their BSN. So it's like if we were to exclude those from the mix, I would feel so bad for us. This is Montgomery College. It's a shout out to Montgomery College here in Montgomery County, Maryland.
Okay, shout
And
out
they
to
do a
Montgomery
great,
College.
yeah, they do a great program and curriculum. And the nurses there are amazing. And the NCLEX, which is the exam that we nurses have to take, is a high pass rate. I call these sometimes like my scrapper nurses, right? Like they're doing everything they can. Like one of the best stories. I've somebody I've never hired, but I referred to another hospital. So I worked for an organization, not this one.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for another organization when I first moved here, and we were only going to allow BSN nurses unless they worked for us. So I get this referral from a nurse who works in mother baby at our hospital, and she says, I've got this great nurse, but she's an associate degree nurse. What can you do? Well, we couldn't hire her till she becomes an employee. It was too late for that. But I referred her actually to Sibley, and I said, here is this amazing nurse. She moved to this country. She cleaned people's homes for 7 years, owned her own business while she took pre-course work, put herself through school at Montgomery College. And the recruiter there at the time, who was my competitor, said, well, thank you. They hired her. She's probably still there. She's probably gone on to get her bachelor's degree, because that's the beauty of it. We'll help you get your bachelor's degree. And it's like we would have missed out on somebody who would have been probably one of those most loyal, right? People. Like you give them that chance. And I felt so sad about that because of our rules. And I think that hospital has changed their rules a little bit when it comes to new grads. I think they are more open to accepting, just like we are. I mean, we're already a magnet hospital.
Right.
Our goal is like, okay, we'll hire you as an associate degree, but you've got this amount of time to enroll and this amount of time to get your BSN. And oh, by the way, we have tuition reimbursement, and we also have a scholarship program for you to go back to school. So
yeah, that's fair. That's 100% fair. I love that. That's great that you do that. Okay, so cover letter, you're looking at it did you literally look at the cover letter before you look at the resume, or do you look at the resume first? True confession.
So I do pre-screening questions within the applicant tracking system. So I look at that first, actually. So for example, do you meet my minimum criteria?
Right.
And if they say no to that, they go to the bottom of my pile to look at, especially if I have a lot of applicants. So I kind of score them, if that makes, and I know it makes sense to recruiters. I score them first, and then I go to that top score, and then I start looking at them. And you could look at a profile, you could look at a resume and a cover letter. So I typically will start with a cover letter, especially if they're applying to other hospitals within Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see if they've thought through it enough to have a cover letter just for me. because I want to feel like I'm special, right? At Suburban.
Exactly.
And then I will look at the resume. And I will say this I want to talk about the resume. So when it comes to the resume, there are so many transferable skills that people have that they don't incorporate sometimes into their resume.
Okay.
And I don't, if a college professor is watching this, please let them have good content in their resume that doesn't have to be clinical, right? If they're a new nurse, or if maybe they're an experienced nurse, but they've had a few different pathways within their nursing career, and
Yes.
maybe they've had another career, maybe they're a veteran, shout out to my veterans, maybe they're a veteran, maybe they worked in a completely different career field. But put that down there. I personally want to see it.
No.
Maybe I'm wrong, and I could be, and I'm always welcome for other people's thoughts and opinions. I'm the one that's going through my resumes and applications, so I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and hopefully it's okay. But I love the idea that you were a Starbucks or a coffee barista.
I was thinking the same exact thing when you said that. I was thinking that they were a barista. That
Oh
was
my
great
gosh.
customer service right there.
Starbucks teaches like everybody's a guest, right? Everybody is a guest who walks through that door.
Yep.
Everybody. And if you have that, or Disney, like you have that great customer service, or the Ritz-Carlton, oh my God, we could go on and on and on. But if you have that great customer service, and if you work at a barista, or as a barista, and you can remember all the non-fat caramel maca laca lacas, I mean, with the whip and the this and the oat and everything.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay as a nurse, and you're going to probably have great customer service skills. You're going to have extreme flexibility. You're going to be able to multitask, right? Do all these different things. So I love to see that. Or even if you worked as a wait staff person, right? Maybe
we're like this right here right now, Teresa. I was thinking a waiter at a restaurant would be a great example too.
Do they not know how to resolve customer complaints?
Of course. I mean, they've had to deal with it all the time. Yeah.
And what is a patient? Customer, right?
There you go.
They're sick and lying in a bed, or maybe sometimes they're in an emergent situation, or maybe they're just there for surgery and they're healthy other than the surgery, but they're a customer.
Yeah.
And they're probably cranky. Nobody really wants to be in the hospital. I mean, sometimes even having a baby is stressful, right? So yeah. So.
And they're working for tips, which means they need to have the customers they would need to meet the customers' expectations or perhaps exceed them. And so if they're in the habit of working for tips, I would imagine, in the setting of the hospital, they're trying to also increase their, meet their expectations of the patient as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they know how to level set through no fault of their own as a server. Is that food not prepared? Through no fault of that nurses, is this not done? Maybe it is that person's fault, but they know how to, I call it the blameless apology. I'm really sorry that this is happening to you. I didn't do it, but I'm really sorry that this is happening to you. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay. So, and by the way, Yamini, welcome. Glad to have you. He's also joining us. So we talked about the first thing you see, really, and you helped to correct me on this. First thing you saw was a profile, whether they answered the questions correctly or not that you had in the system. So you see that first, then you see the cover letter, then you're looking at the resume, and then on the resume, if they don't have enough skills that are directly related to the job, that you want to see some transferable skills.
Yes. And I always tell people, even you could be an experienced nurse, but please don't list out all the tasks that you do.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I know that if you worked as a patient care tech or a CNA, that you know how to do vital signs and I's and O's and activities of daily living. You don't need to write it all out. You don't need fluff like that, right? What I want to know is, were you selected to train all of the new hires? Even if you were a wait staff person, right? Were you the person who trained other people? What does that tell me about you? That tells me you were a role model, that you were good and really good at whatever it was you did. So, some of my favorite resumes are people that are second career nurses, or even they've been a nurse for a long time, and you could see the progression, right? So charge nurse, assistant nurse manager, coordinator, and they're doing all of these different and unique things. It's because A, they put themselves out there to take that next step. And B, they're like really just just working their way up, and they're going to be great. My chief nursing officer, she started off as a patient care tech here.
That's a good
Patient care tech.
Yeah, that's awesome.
CNO, Happy Nurses Weekly, and
Wow. Talk about career progression on that one. That's an awesome one. In fact,
and talk about inspirational when she comes to our orientation, and she's talking to everybody and she's just telling them her story.
that's
Like,
amazing.
who doesn't that inspire?
I imagine when she does tell the story, she gets that right there
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
for
I
sure.
mean, people's journeys. It's just, I knew I didn't want to be in healthcare as a kid. I mean, but yet went in the Air Force, and where did I work? In a hospital. I worked in the hospital dining facility. I made eggs in the morning. I mean, that was my first job in a hospital. But I got to interact with the patients in the afternoon, and I got to start teaching classes. Nothing like a hyper 17-year-old teaching the weight management class. So that was kind of fun. But I mean, I think about my own journey: food services, diet therapy, pharmacy tech, phlebotomist, military public health on the military side of things, and then becoming a nurse tech, and then becoming a nurse. And 29 years ago, if somebody would have said, "Oh, you're going to be a nurse recruiter and talking to Rallis right now," I'd have been like, "No, no." And yet here we are.
Exactly. There's a nice little story behind your serving eggs thing. I want you to tell that story before.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Pease Air Force Base, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I'm dating myself, 1983. And I would serve eggs. And of course, I am that morning person. So at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm smiling. I'm like, hey, everybody. And you do that for 2 years straight. You get to know everybody's order. And people are pretty methodical about their breakfast. People don't often like to change it up. So
It's true.
fast forward 10 years to 1993. I had graduated nursing school in 92. I was at Brooks Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, graduating from the School of Aerospace Medicine as a flight nurse. I was going to fly on C-130s. And I'm walking across the stage at the School of Aerospace Medicine, and the commander, Dr. Stepp, Colonel Stepp, gave me my wings. And I change my hairstyle all the time, and I'm always looking different. So 10 years, I looked a little bit different. And he came up to me after the graduation and he said, "Did you ever used to work at Pease Air Force Base?" And I was like, "Yes, sir." I'm like a second lieutenant. I'm a 10-year veteran second lieutenant. And he says, "You used to make me breakfast." And I said, "Were you a major flight surgeon back then?" And he looked at me and he goes, "Yes." And I couldn't help it. I blurted out. I was like, "Vegetable omelet, with spinach on top." And I mean, I was telling him what his breakfast order was like 10 years before that. And we laughed. And I said, "Well, how did you know me?" And he says, "It's your gait." He says, "You came bouncing across that stage." He goes, "And people's gaits don't change." He goes, "I would imagine 10 years from now, you'll be out on the flight line near one of the planes, and somebody's going to say, 'Well, there's the lieutenant or captain or whatever.'" And yeah, it's true.
To me, the moral of that story is, how you treat somebody today can stick with them for a very, very long time. So let's give them a great experience, right? Let's give
Oh,
them a great experience.
absolutely.
Just like
When I think about, I mean, it's funny, on Monday, I'll be facilitating new employee orientation. And I look at the folks and I always ask, is this your first job in healthcare? So a lot of our entry level positions, like, they could be patient access or environmental services or food services, and it might be their first job. And it's always fun because it's like, okay, welcome to the world. We have our own language, lots of regulatory compliance type things that you're going to hear today that you're going to figure like, why does this apply to me?
right.
But it's a journey. And
Yep.
if you can find that meaningful work that you do, washing the dishes or making sure that the rooms are clean, and the impact that has on everybody. Like, one of my favorite people was a gentleman who would wash dishes. And he said, if I don't do my job well, imagine if somebody got sick because I didn't clean the chicken or whatever off of the plate.
That's true.
And imagine if it was a surgeon and he was operating on my mother or something. Imagine that. And
Yeah,
he was able to connect those dots. Like, those are the people you want to be on your team, right? They connect the
absolutely.
dots.
I have a question for you. Would you rather And by the way, those in the comments, I want you to answer the same question. Okay. Would you rather have a blowout while driving 70 miles an hour, or have your steering lock up while driving 40 miles an hour?
So first of all, who told you about my 70-mile-per-hour down the highway in a 25 zone driving?
I didn't know, but that's why I love these questions because the stuff comes out. So tell us about it.
I, you know, I have a Mini Cooper Countryman, and you know this about Uralus. It's
Yes,
British
I do.
Racing Green 4 is the
Yes.
color, in case anybody really wants to know, that's the color. But I take great pride in driving like I'm an extra in the Italian Job. So I would have to say 70 miles per hour and let the tire blow out because I feel like I could handle it.
I think you could. I think you could. Absolutely. And by the way, those of you who if you follow Teresa, which you if you aren't, you should follow her. And when you follow her, you will notice in her banner, it is in British Racing Green. That's the exact color of her car. Very good. That's on purpose.
On
In,
purpose.
in fact, and if you go to her landing page, again, it'll be in British Racing Green. So
British Racing Green 4, there's a difference in those
sorry.
colors. Come on.
Okay. Did we match it up right? Does it match it up right?
It
Hopefully.
is.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. All right. So I have another question for you.
Sure.
This is a never have I ever question.
Okay.
Never have I ever gotten lost in a corn maze. Have you or have you never gotten lost in a corn maze? And those in the comments, I want you to answer the question as well. Even if you're watching the replay, I still want you to answer, guys.
I
Okay.
have never been in a corn maze.
You've never been in a corn maze.
No. I lived on a farm for about 4 years and I was trying to think if that counted, but I wasn't in a maze. I was on a farm and
Okay.
I didn't get lost,
Okay,
but I worked on a farm.
of course you didn't. Okay. I have another question for you. What was the most entertaining concert you've ever seen?
Uh, I would say from an overwhelming feeling was on Andrea Bocelli.
Oh,
Um,
wow, that's powerful. Yeah, I've never seen it
yeah,
in person.
yeah. And as a matter of fact, my dream is it's on my bucket list, post-COVID bucket list, to go to Tuscany to the town where he is from. He does a concert every summer in his hometown, and I want to be
Oh,
there.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay, now
yeah.
you were whenever I asked you for a wine recommendation last year, you gave me a wine recommendation. Do you remember what that wine recommendation
It
was?
was either going to be a Chianti Classico or a Brunello.
Actually, it was Sangiovese.
Well, Sangiovese grape is what they make Chianti Classico out of, and what they make Brunello out of. It's the
Oh, wow.
Sangiovese grape.
See, there you go. So you're just so beyond my level. Anyway, I looked it up quickly, and guess whose Sangiovese wine I ended up getting?
Whose did you get?
Bocelli.
What?
His family has a winery
Ah,
in Italy, and that's the one I got was a Bocelli Sangiovese wine. That was the
I
first one.
love it.
That was great. Speaking of wine, I got to talk about this.
Oh,
I
geez.
cannot leave without us finishing up with this. You got a
We're
couple.
all over the place, Ross.
We need,
It's Friday.
hey, look, we talked a lot. Look, we gave some good value on the job seeking. In fact, guys, if you're watching right now live and you missed the part about the job seeking, as soon as this is over, I want you to hit play on this thing and watch the replay because it was awesome content about how to find how to be noticed by hiring managers and recruiters. Okay, so tell us about that. Now I can talk about the wine. Okay, tell us about this special certification you have, and I want to learn a little bit about wine. Okay, so let's talk about that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
Friday.
2 years ago, um, most people are like, when are you going to retire? Right? And are you ever going to retire? And they start asking all these questions. And you hear about these people that work until they're like 75, 80 years old. And we have people that have been here for like 45 years, and they could have retired and they don't. They love their job. And for me, I'm like, oh, I have a date. I won't say it out loud. I don't want to make anybody nervous that I work with, but it's like, yeah, it'll be sooner than later. And it's not to do anything with regard to recruiting. I want to go work in a winery. And I've actually got a house there in Walla Walla, Washington. And preferably double back, which is one of Drew Bledsoe's wineries. He's
Oh,
a
really?
Yeah, yeah. So he has a great winery. They make great Cabernets. Although Alluve, there's some other ones. Valdemar would be good too. But so I went and I signed up and I took an in-person class called WSET, Wine Spirit Education Trust. So I am a WSET level 2 certified. Yeah, I'm certified as a WSET level 2, and I have I don't wear the pin of the little wine thing on my lapel, but yeah, and I skipped over the one because I drink enough wine and I go to wine classes all the time. I have some friends that own a winery in Silver Spring called the Urban Winery of Silver Spring. Shout out to them. And we do weekly wine classes pre-pandemic and soon to be post-pandemic. So I thought, well, I'll just skip right to the WSET level 2. It was difficult. And what's funny is you're not drinking wine, tasting, spitting, tasting, spitting, tasting, spitting. And we probably drank, it was once a week, and we probably drank or tasted 10 to 12 different types of wine a night.
Oh, wow.
And, but you're not drinking.
You're spitting it right out.
Yeah, your taste
Oh.
swirl, you're doing all these things.
Where's the fun part of that? Give me the fun part.
After, when the instructor, who also happened to be a wine distributor, has these leftover bottles, and then you start drinking. It's all good.
There we go.
So I want to do the WSET level 2. So the WSET level or 3, I mean, I've done that. That is only a written test. The WSET level 3, which is much, much more challenging. It's like this many people have WSET level 2 and this many people have the 3, and then the diploma is like this many. So and it's based out of the UK, by the way. So for Europeans, like the WSET is their standard, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but WSET level 3 involves tasting and identifying. So it's almost like you're going for a sommelier type, not that much of a level, but it definitely kicks it up a notch. So I won't do that yet. And I have no idea what just happened right here. So give me just a minute.
Okay.
That was strange.
Well,
wow.
I still see you. You're still good. I still see you and hear you.
Okay, my computer just like locked up on me and I couldn't see you. Anyway, that was so strange. Anyway, that's my next job. I want to work. I belong to so many wine clubs.
Okay. I have more questions for you, but I just want to acknowledge Gwen. Hi, Gwen. Gwen is joining us. She is a HR director for a medical practice, a large one. I don't remember exactly where it is. I think it's in Bon Secure or something like that. Anyway, welcome to the show, Gwen. We're talking about wine, Gwen. So give us your favorite. What's your favorite wine right now, Gwen? I know she likes her wine too. I like my wine. And so, what's your favorite thing you're drinking right now, Teresa? I say not at this moment, but you know what I mean. Like your favorite thing.
Water. Water is my favorite thing that I'm drinking right now.
Right, exactly. Water for right now, but you know what I mean.
You know, it's and I'm not a big person that says like, oh, you have to have seasonal wines and then springtime and summer and everybody needs to break out the whites and the bubblies and the rosés. I don't follow those traditions. Right. I think about what I'm in the mood for. I think about the food I'm serving. So I definitely, like, the last few days has been, that's kind of strange that I'm thinking about this. So I've had everything this week from a South African Chenin Blanc. I've had a.
How's that? How'd you like it?
It was beautiful. I don't like, I'm not a big oaky kind of person. I like things that are crisp and refreshing when it comes to my whites. I like, so I had a Chenin Blanc. I had I had a Malbec. I had an Australian Malbec, I think, now that I'm thinking about it. I know I've had at least one bottle of, from a Rioja, like a Tempranillo grape from Spain. And then I had a Rioja Rosé as well. So I'm all over the place.
Okay, I have a question for you.
I embrace all levels of diversity when it comes to wine.
I love that. Yes. So what if for the rest of the year, you could only drink one type of wine for the rest of the year? But here's the good thing. Price is no object. So if you could only drink one kind of wine for the rest of the year, which wine would that be if price is no object? Gwen and whoever else is watching, if you're watching the replay, I want to know the same thing. What would you drink?
Probably Brunellas. The Brunellas, which is a Sangiovese grape that is from Montalcino, is the area that they're made.
Okay.
And Brunello di Montalcino is basically kind of how they describe that, how the wine will be labeled. But
Right.
yeah, if I had to on a desert island with some water.
Okay. Now I want to understand because when I went to the store and I was going to get this Sangiovese wine, sometimes it would term it as if it was a blend of some sort. It wasn't like its own thing. So tell me, what is Sangiovese? What does that actually mean? Because
Sangiovese is a grape.
okay, it's a grape.
It's a varietal. And there are different, so you could have like a Sangiovese, you could have a Rosso, which is a blend of, it could be anything, lots of different wines combinations. Chianti Classico, like the Chianti Classicos are 100%. There's different levels, right? So, and then the
Uh,
Brunellos are basically more mature, aged. And if you look at the price points, if you're at the store later on this weekend, you'll see that Brunellos are, you know, they're not like, we're not talking about, we're talking about a Bordeaux, Merlot, or a Cab here that's going to cost you $400. It's only like $50 to maybe $200 a bottle is like a normal
oh,
price
just
range.
yeah. Well, only
You
two.
said price wasn't an issue.
You're right. You're right.
And I'm trying to be conservative.
Okay. What is the most expensive bottle of wine you've ever had?
I was at that's so easy. Boy, see how quickly that just, not that I've purchased, but that I've had.
Right. That you've had. Right. That you've had.
Okay. I was in France, actually in, oh my gosh, we were in Bordeaux. Was it Left Bank? And we were on Saint-Emilion and we were doing a wine tasting in Saint-Emilion. And I think it was probably a 30-year-old bottle of wine. And I think it was like, I can't remember, the euros was like 650 euros. So convert that to US dollars.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it was probably like a $900 bottle of wine.
yeah.
There
Wow.
are people out there that do that on a night, a weeknight.
How was it?
Right?
How was it? So how did it taste? Does it taste a lot better than let's say, when I usually spend like 15, $20 on a bottle of wine. How is it like a lot better than that?
No, it depends. It depends upon the type. We did a blind tasting. Friends came over pre-pandemic, and we were doing a Cabernet. So we had a $15 Cabernet, a $40 Cabernet, and a $100 Cabernet.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't really tell the difference between the 15 or the 40, but you sure could tell the difference between the 40 and the $90 Cabernet.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, you couldn't tell the difference between the 15 and the 40, but you could tell the difference between the 40 and the 90.
You could tell the difference between the 15, the 40, and then versus the 90. Absolutely. Yeah.
But
Yep.
okay, so unless you're willing to spend over $50, you're probably not.
I'm not saying that.
All right. I was just trying to make a little trying to make a little judgment off of it. So
my expertise right now is more about recruitment, less about wine, but in the future.
there actually, I think there's a recruitment lesson in here though. I think there is actually one here.
You know what? There is a recruitment lesson. Do you know what I always want to say?
What's that?
Okay. And this, I've been thinking about this. So I'm nurses out there, this is going to be a future post. This is going to be a future poll.
Okay.
I'll think about this. But if you were a nurse in a specialty, what kind of wine would you be?
I like that.
Right? So think about that. That's going to be a future post. That'll be a Saturday night post. Unfortunately, you'll probably be working and I'll be drinking. So yeah, I'll take my hat off to you. But no, I think sometimes you need to invest in time, in people, and in wine.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when they talk about wines that can age well, sometimes we are impatient and we want to drink them now, and we're not going to get everything that is really amazing about that wine. Yeah. Just like a person, if we expect them to perform well right at this moment, the minute we hire them, and we don't invest in time and training and letting them breathe,
oh yes,
right?
Yes,
and letting them come to their own fruition, if you will, then they're not going to be as good as they could be. There's our correlation for the day.
Oh, there we go. There we go. See, sometimes it takes a little time to get the nuggets out. We had
just
lots
like it takes time for the wine and the person.
And I'm just going to check in with our group here and see. And they seem to like what you just said. I liked it. That was great. So that I think we're going to end it with that. That was a great session today. Thank you everyone for being here and being involved. And those who are watching the replay, please let us know what resonated with you. I'd love to hear of anything. If you want to talk about your favorite kind of wine, if you want to talk about your cover letter experience, if you want to talk about, your experience in getting noticed, what things have helped you, and those other recruiters too. Other recruiters may be watching this, Teresa. So we'd love to hear back from them as well. We want to get your thoughts. We know our opinions aren't the only ones. We want to see what you guys think too. But
Absolutely. I'm going to plug something here. So I belong to this larger group of healthcare recruiters called the National Association of Healthcare Recruiters.
yes,
It's
good
the
organization.
only association that is actually run by us, the volunteer healthcare recruiters, for healthcare recruiters. NAHCR, you could go online, check us out. We've got a virtual conference coming up in July, monthly webinars. And I think that we're all in this together.
Yes.
And like just on our listserv, it's like you feel so close to people because you're feeling everybody else's pain along with your pain in the world of recruitment on some days. And it's just nice to have that community.
And I'm going to be there with you. In fact, I'm actually going to be one of your speakers. So
I know.
I'm very excited about being there with you guys. That's going to be a great program for your conference. I'll look forward. It'll be my first one actually too. It'll be my first one with you guys. So I'm really looking forward to that. Well, listen, thank you everybody for being with us here today. We really appreciate it. This is my first time doing this kind of pure recruitment conversation in a while. I haven't. Last time I did this was probably like last year with just one person. We had some panels, but this one-on-one. This is fun. I enjoy this. Would you like to do it again someday?
Absolutely. And to all of you that are nurses out there, I just want to say Happy Nurses Week. And if you're a mom, Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you, nurses, for all that you do. And you know what? I also want to take this as a moment to let folks know that you're going to be coming out with a show soon.
I know.
Which is going to be called?
I don't know. No. Wine tips? Talent tips with Teresa?
Yes, talent tips with Teresa. So that's going to be, we don't know if that's going to be on her individual profile, or if it's going to be on HR Maximizer, but it's going to be a show. It's coming out. So look out for that. And she's going to have all kind of different guests, nurses coming on and talking with nurses, other leaders. So I'm looking forward to taking a kind of a backseat. I'll be helping you produce it and everything with my team, but I'm looking forward to that show, Teresa. It's going to be great.
Maybe we'll sneak some wine tips in there along the way.
Yes, you're going to, you know what? I think you're going to have a segment, just a segment of each one where you talk about a certain kind of wine or something that day or something. Yeah, that'd be good. That would be awesome. All right, well, listen, bye, everyone. Thanks for watching. Okay, we're going to hold on for 1 second here. And so either Jonathan or Joanna, let me know it's okay to hit the end stream button. And, oh, by the way, while we're waiting to do that, point to your sign. You just got that sign there.
Oh, yeah. My grace, gratitude, and grit for Happy Nurses Week. Pretty awesome. Yeah, that was at my doorstep. That was at my doorstep.